All right, there has been a lot of talk about another shutdown, and honestly, I don't want to say nothing wrong, but it'd be wrong if I don't say nothing. I want to talk about why I think this is extremely dangerous. Yes, trying to protect us against the coronavirus can actually be very dangerous. I know, don't get mad at me. Just listen to the whole thing. I'm gonna go through my thoughts about this and what I think the effects will be on everybody. Not only just like psychologically, but just economically. Of course, this is a finance channel. So let's get into all of that and more. It's Crystal with the Cash Compass. All right, welcome back. I am here to teach you all the things that you should have learned in school about money, but for whatever reason, they forgot to mention it. Please be sure to subscribe because we talk about everything from personal finance to investing to the economy. Let's get into it. All right, so some administrative things. I am obviously not home. I am in Belize and I will be here until December. I'm doing a lot of fun real estate stuff that I am vlogging, so that will be coming to you guys soon, if not Friday, maybe next week. It just depends on like the editing. It takes a long time to edit these kind of vlogs type of things. So anyways, that'll be coming soon, so check that out. Be sure to subscribe so you can see all of my real estate investments because it'll be cool. Also, needless to say, it is hot here, okay? I am melting, so if you see me hot and bothered, please just disregard that. Honestly, the only reason I'm wearing clothes is because if I didn't wear clothes, it would just send the wrong message to you guys, all right? So bear with me, bear with the heat, and I'll be sweating. Just don't mind me. All right, and now that that is out of the way, let's talk about this second shutdown. So there are already some places that have already started, California, Philadelphia, to name a few, where they've said, all right, let's go right back to March. We're shutting things down again. That little 25% capacity we gave you guys, I'm gonna need that back. And if you aren't in those cities, you'll also maybe notice that there's starting to be a shortage of certain food items again, and of course, toilet paper. In fact, toilet paper searches have been on the rise lately. So if that doesn't indicate that we are going to some sort of shutdown, I don't know what will. I thought that we learned from the last shutdown that we didn't really move our bowels as much as we thought, but I guess people they just want to be sure. Panic hoarding is beginning to increase across the nation, and honestly, people are preparing a lot for just being locked down, but that is like one of the very least of our problems when it comes to preparation. And let me get into what I mean when I say that. So what else will rise along with toilet tissue searches? Unemployment claims, right? Because when you shut down the economy, what happens to these people's jobs? They get shut down, and for whatever reason the government decided that only major huge stores like Walmarts and Targets, where a whole bunch of people can congregate, only they're allowed to be open, right? The small mom and pop stores that might be able to offer the same amount of groceries or whatever supplies that these big retailers offer, for whatever reason they can't open up, right? I guess it's easier for them to say, all right, let's just pick and choose some of the winners of the shutdown and let everybody else just kind of figure things out for themselves. So when this happens, there's gonna have more unemployment claims. And unemployment has already pretty much been tapped out. If you did not know, the way unemployment is funded is by your employer. Your employer pays a 6% up to the first $7,000 of your eligible wages. But it gets better because honestly, it doesn't even sound like a lot of money. But on top of that, they get to get a credit of 5.4%. So they actually net pay only 0.6% of the first $7,000, which equals 42 bucks. All right. So they only put about $42 into the federal unemployment kind of fund. And obviously there are some technicalities. You're only able to get that credit if you do have an unemployment system at the state level. So they do have to offer some aid, state by state. That's just a federal kind of, once you've tapped out all of your money, that is a reserve you can kind of borrow against. But as we all know, we had a very healthy unemployment benefit given for a couple of months during the first wave. So that has been depleted. If people aren't working that much, there won't be as much money going into that fund, right? Because the employer is paying based off of the employee's income. But if there ain't no income, there ain't no fund. So we are paying out money that we don't have using people's incomes that are also non-existent, right? So that obviously is a cocktail for a disaster. So what is the government going to do? Well, let's just print up some more money. Who cares? Nobody's stopping us. There's nothing that prevents us or limits us from kind of having to not print as much money, right? We have an unlimited checkbook, but we all pay for these things. I know a lot of people were against Biden because he was kind of having a whole bunch of different taxes being imposed. And I actually saw a kind of complete opposite thing, right? It was a little bit polarizing. On one hand, people were saying, who cares? You don't make $400,000 anyway. Like, you're not going to be impacted. And on the other hand, you have people who were still upset about that. I want to make it very clear to you guys, when they impose a tax, it might start out as something for the rich, but it always ends up trickling down to the average American. Income taxes weren't supposed to be imposed, period. But once they did impose it, it was supposed to be for higher income people. Now, guess what? Even if you make $15,000, you're getting taxed, okay? Property taxes were the same. You can go ahead and look this up and fact check me. A lot of taxes started off as for the rich and always ended up as one for all for one, okay? On top of that, people who have that kind of net worth and have that kind of income, they can hire CPAs to find loopholes. We are the ones that pay the majority of the taxes. It's been that way for a very long time, even before Donald Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I mean, even though he slashed corporate taxes, corporations were still paying next to nothing compared to what every average American pays, right? We pay the majority of the federal income taxes. So I say all of that to say, when you're tapping money out of the unemployment and you're printing up all this money to kind of fund certain things going on during the pandemic, we pay that back with our tax dollars, right? Because every single dollar the government gets is from us. The government is broke, right? If it wasn't for us, they would have absolutely no money. And when we have these programs, it seems really, really great, but if the rich are not paying for them, and if the poor are also not paying for them because they don't really generate enough money to generate some real revenue, the middle class gets slapped from both sides. We already, as is, might not be able to recover for years because of this first wave. So imagine the second wave, imagine more stimulus, imagine more unemployment benefits, things that of course people feel like we need, and I'm gonna get into that in a moment, but things that people feel that we need are going to cost us and our grandkids, right? Because when we're borrowing this money, we're borrowing from our future, even at the individual level, right? If I have a car note and I'm at 28 saying, okay, I'm gonna get a 5-year car note, I'm borrowing from my 30-year-old self, my 32-year-old self, right? I'm just grabbing from the future, like, hopefully you'll need this money, Crystal, because we're gonna need it right now, right? So that's what happens when we are doing this at a global level, at a national level. You're borrowing from the future, from your kids, and we don't even know how the world is gonna be looking like when they come to terms, when they're starting to pay their taxes, right? On top of that, and like I said, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but if we go by their numbers, okay, this is not a conspiracy theory, because I think a lot of people tend to quickly label things as conspiracy theories without even really looking into it in great detail. Without fabricating, just going off of whatever they're saying, okay, the death rate is around 1%. All right, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be cautious. I'm not saying that we shouldn't shut down. I am saying it's a hell of a lot of effort to go through for when 99% of the people survive this thing, right? When 99% of the population, and it's, I think it was a worldwide, I don't know if it's American level or worldwide, I think it's actually both, right? They're both around a 1% death rate, so a 99% survival rate. Actually, let me fact check that. Sorry, I wanted to just make sure that I was correct. Yes, the death rate is actually 1.4% in the US, so let's just be fun and round it off to 2%, right? So 98% of the people that get this do survive, and for the 2%, we are going to get ourselves in trillions of more dollars of debt. We are going to have a lot of people stressed out, you know, mentally. They're not going to have jobs. You're going to have to go through the stress of getting unemployment and maybe doing all that effort to not even get it, because a lot of people they've gone weeks and weeks and weeks without getting it, right? So we're having that. We're having supply shortages because people are frantically freaking out, trying to get to things before everything shuts down. A lot of these things will have a psychological effect on people. A lot of these things are going to be hard for people to kind of bounce back financially. Even though we have a whole bunch of moratoriums and things in place, it's not forgiveness, right? So even if you don't have a job, maybe you still have somewhere to stay for right now, but eventually all the dust will settle. There will be a time, I don't know when, but there will be a time where it's like, okay, we don't need to give you guys any more moratoriums. We don't need to give you guys any more aid, no more grants, no more, these, business loans or whatever. Like, eventually they will kind of cut the cord, right? Maybe not fully, but something will have to give. And then what are you going to be left with? A whole bunch of problems, a lot of things to pay for. So when you think about things like that, that's not going to be good for the economy, okay? And it seems like a lot to kind of put on the line for this 2% of people. And honestly, if you guys feel a different way, please let me know in the comments. Like I said, I'm okay with being wrong. I'm okay with being corrected. And I'm okay with getting a different perspective. But I do think that the emotional toll that the whole entire nation will suffer from, financially, emotionally, mentally from this may far exceed the amount of debts that we have, right? So 2% of people actually perish from this. But what percent of people are struggling, right? What percent of people are stressed out? What percent of people aren't able to eat? I mean, have you seen these food lines? They've been getting out of control state by state. I've seen countless videos of lines wrapping around the corner. And my question is, how much more of that can we do, right? How many more free things can we give out? How many more entitlement benefits can we offer to people before we have to kind of cut that cord? And when you cut that cord, what is it going to look like for people? Are there going to be jobs out here for people to get, right? It might look like the economy is doing better because we are technically out of a recession, right? Because the GDP number was astronomical, mind you. If it wasn't for all that aid, right, all the stimulus, all the unemployment, if it wasn't for that, GDP would have still been down. We would have still been in a technical recession. But you better believe if we have another shutdown, it will be a double dip recession. And how much longer will we actually give these benefits to people? Is this making things better or is it making things worse, right? Because we're putting a lot of money in people's pockets for them to stay home and just kind of be in fear, right? We're not putting more money into innovation and trying to kind of still create things and still produce things. Like, I mean, I know it's kind of hard to say that, and it's kind of wrong for me to say that in a pandemic, like who's going to be producing stuff in a pandemic? But there's certain protocols that we can take, right? We've lived with this thing for long enough. We know how to be safe. I think a lot of this money should be going into trying to build our country back up, because we don't want to have a whole bunch of people who have just been collecting free checks. And then when it's time to start building the economy up, everybody's lazy and no one has been innovating this whole time. So there are no jobs to go back to because everybody has just been collecting checks and no one has actually been doing anything of value or forced to actually go out there and produce. Do you think that we'll be better off in the long run if we shut everything down again? You know, and I think a lot of people who are, you know, in the office world, which I'm guilty of it too, it's like, I honestly would be okay, you know, knock on wood, if we shut down again, because my job can be done from anywhere in the world, right? I'm an accountant. I work on my computer. I sit down at a desk for hours and hours. But a lot of our country are service-based people, right? People who produce goods, people who provide services. So those people, I'm sure, even if they are scared, they have to go out there and get money, right? They want to make a living for themselves. And if you give those people checks, that might be good for sure, of course. I mean, I would love to get a check and just kind of sit around. Let me not sit here and lie to you. I just don't know how sustainable that is. So all in all, I do think that these things are pretty much needed. I'm going to have a different video about the economy because we've been seeing a whole bunch of different kind of, oh yeah, we're doing good, like we're in the V recovery, but the numbers suggest something otherwise. So you'll definitely want to be subscribed because I will be going through what the government has been spending, right? And kind of putting their money where the mouth is. Like, so you're claiming that we're doing good, right? Stock market's at an all-time high, keep on reaching these new levels. But what is your spending saying? Because it is saying something different. But I do want to hear from you guys. What do you think about this whole second shutdown? Are you in agreement with it? Do you want it to happen or are you not? Please comment because I want to see kind of what people are thinking right now. And I might even do a poll in my community post. So look out for that because I do want to see if people think it's a good idea or a bad idea. So let me know your thoughts. But that will do it. If you like this video, then please like this video and consider subscribing. And if anything else going on, you know what to do. Go ahead and binge watch me. And until next time, keep your money up.